Hello, I'm going to read Epictetus until my brain rot dissolves. I'm going to begin with this wonderful Greek philosopher because he really had quite an interesting understanding of control and discussion around who controls who and why. Now, what was his motivation or what was his context that helped him understand that so well? He was a slave. He was born into slavery. So if ever a man was to understand different paradigms surrounding control, I think we can argue that it would be a Hellenistic slave. So I'm going to read from any section. Actually, I'm just going to open up to anywhere. Although that I've highlighted too much, evidently I got very excited about that section. Let's have a read of Book 1. This is Epictetus's Discourses. Book 1, Chapter 20. Concerning reason and how it studies itself. Every craft or faculty has a field with which it is primarily concerned. When the faculty happens to be like what it studies, it naturally comes to study itself. When it is different, however, then it cannot. To give an example, shoemaking works on leather, but the craft itself is quite distinct from leather. Therefore, it does not study itself. The art of grammar has to do with written speech, but it is written speech. No? Therefore, it cannot study itself. Now, for what purpose did nature arm us with reason? To make the correct use of impressions. And what is reason if not a collection of individual impressions? Hence, it naturally comes to turn its analysis on itself. And what does the virtue of wisdom profess to investigate? Things good, bad, and indifferent? And what is wisdom itself? Good and in ignorance? Bad? It is natural for wisdom too, then, to investigate itself, as well as its opposite. Therefore, the first and most important duty of the philosopher is to test impressions, choosing between them and only deploying those that have passed the test. You know how, with money, an area where we believe our interest to be much at stake, we have developed the art of assaying, and considerable ingenuity has gone into developing a way to test if coins are counterfeit. Involving our senses of sight, smell, hearing, and touch, the assayer will let the Dorianus drop and listen intently to its ring. And he is not satisfied to listen just once. After repeated listenings, he practically acquires a musician's subtle ear. It is a measure of the effort we are prepared to expend to guard against deception when accuracy is at its premium. When it comes to our poor mind, however, we cannot be bothered. We are satisfied accepting any and all impressions because here the loss we suffer is not obvious. If you want to know just how little concerned you are about things good and bad and how serious about things indifferent, compare your attitude of going blind with your attitude about being mentally in the dark. You will realize, I think, how inappropriate your values really are. But this calls for a lot of preparation and hard study. So what? Do you think the greatest art can be acquired easily and overnight? It's true that the principal doctrine of the philosophers is briefly stated. You have only to read Zeno to see my meaning. How long does it take to stay and say, the goal is to follow the gods, and the essence of the good is the proper use of impressions? But just because it is so brief, the formula prompts other questions. What is God, and what is an impression? How does individual nature compare with the nature of the whole? Now the inquiry is beginning to drag out. Here we have Epictetus saying that goodness is none other than the flesh. But then there are lectures to sit through about man's dominant principle, that is to say, about what his substance and essence are. and the explanation begins to grow long again. It's not likely that the good of a snail lies in its shell. So is it likely that Epictetus is correct in identifying man's good with his body? Take yourself, Epicurus. Even you have a faculty that is greater than the flesh. The faculty which, having examined and thought through the evidence, concluded that flesh was the principal thing. And why are you so fond of burning the midnight oil, working hard to produce so many books on our behalf? Obviously, it must matter to you that we be put in possession of the truth. But who are we? And, more to the point, who are we to you? Well now, the explanation of Epicurus' views is growing lengthy too. Chapter 21. To people who want to be admired. When someone is properly grounded in life, they shouldn't have to look outside themselves for approval. My friend, what is it you want? I am satisfied if my desires and aversions agree with nature, if I exercise impulse and refusal as I was born to do, and if I practice purpose, design, and assent the same way. So why are you acting so stuck up? I want everyone I meet to admire me, to follow me around shouting with a great philosopher. And who exactly are these people that you want to be admired by? Aren't they the same people you are in the habit of calling crazy? And is this your life ambition then? To win the approval of lunatics? Chapter 22. On preconceptions. Everyone has preconceptions, and one preconception does not contradict another. I mean, who of us does not assume that what is good is beneficial and choice, in all cases to be desired and pursued? Who of us does not assume that justice is fair and appropriate? So where does conflict come in? In the application of preconceptions to particular cases, one person, for instance, will say, "Well done, there's a brave man," while another says, "He isn't brave, he's just deranged." This is how conflict originates, and it's the source of difference between many. So, from that section so far, I think we can come to the conclusion that he is incredibly applicable for our modern life. The idea of, obviously, not caring too much about other people's opinions has evidently been an issue since ancient Greece. And he puts a very good point forward that we ought to be in alignment with our own spirit and our own mind and our own psyche, just as we were born to do, as opposed to any impressions imposed upon us by others, by society, by a control that is not our own. Let's read chapter 19. How we should act towards the powerful. A person who enjoys some advantage or just believes they do will invariably grow to be arrogant, especially if they are uneducated. The tyrant, for example, will say to you, "My power is supreme," and you will do something for them then. I want uncurbed desire. Do you even have to give? I have my aversion error-free. Do you have that? How about a faculty of impulse that is faultless? No, you have no connection to that. You entrust yourself to the pilot's expertise when on board ship, and to the superior skill of the driver when you are in a carriage. It's no different with other skills. So what does your advantage amount to? Everybody gives me their attention and respect. Right, and I pay attention to my blackboard, whipping it and washing it, and for my oil flask, I'll even drive a nail in the wool. Does that make these things better than me? No, it just means that they are useful to me somehow. I look after my horse too. I wash its feet and brush its coat. The fact is, everyone looks after themselves. If they curry favor with you, it's as if they're currying their horse. Who is there who respects you as a human being? Who wants to be like you, to emulate you the way people emulated Socrates? But I can cut off your head. Good point. I had forgotten that I should look out for you as I would look out for some virus or infection, and erect an altar to you on the model of the altar of fever at Rome. What frightens people most and keeps them subdued? It can't be the tyrant and his bodyguards. What nature has made free can only be disturbed or hampered by itself. A person's own thoughts unnerve them. If a tyrant threatens to chain our legs, whoever holds his legs in high regard will beg for mercy, whereas the person who cares more for his character will answer back, "Go ahead and chain it, if that's what you want." And you don't care? I don't care. Just wait, I'll show you who's in charge. How do you propose to do that? Zeus himself has given me my freedom. He was not going to allow any son of his to be enslaved. You are master of my corpse. Come help yourself to that. What about when you petition me for a favor? Isn't that proof of your regard? No, it's me looking after myself. If you press the point, I will concede that in the process, I give you the same attention I give my dishes. Look, this is not selfishness. It's the nature of the beast. Everything we do is done for our own ends. The sun moves across the sky for its own ends. Even Zeus acts for his own aims. But when Zeus wants to be rain bringer or grain giver or father of gods and men, it's obvious that he can only gain his goal and earn his epithets by doing some benefit for the world at large. In the same way, he made the rational animal, man, incapable of attaining any of his private ends without at the same time providing for the community. The upshot is that it is not antisocial to be constantly acting in one's own self-interest. We do not expect someone, after all, to be indifferent regarding himself and his welfare. It's the basis of our principle of appropriation, the instinct that drives everyone's behavior. Consequently, when people are mistaken in the views they hold about things outside the will, thinking that they are good or evil, they naturally are going to grovel before tyrants. And if only it ended there. But they grovel before the tyrant's lackeys too. Tell me, how do underlings become sages when the emperor elevates them to the post of bathroom attendant? Why are we suddenly saying, Felicio's advice to me was very astute. I hope he gets kicked out of the toilet so I can see you change your mind again and declare publicly that he's a fool. Epictetus, once owned a slave, a shoemaker whom he sold because he was no good. As chance would have it, he was brought by one of the imperial household and became shoemaker to Caesar. He should have seen Epictetus flatter him then. And how is my friend Felicio today? Whenever one of us asked, "Where is the master?" he would be told he is in conference with Felicio. Hadn't he sold him off because he was useless? How did he become so knowledgeable all of a sudden? Well, that's what comes of valuing anything not under control of the will. Someone is raised to the office of tribune and accepts congratulations on every hand. One person kisses his eyes, another his cheek, his slaves even kiss his hands. When he gets home, he finds lamps being lit in his honor. He mounts the Capitol, where he offers a sacrifice of thanks. Now, who, I ask you, has ever offered a sacrifice for right desires or for impulses in agreement with nature? We only thank the gods, it seems, for what we popularly suppose are the good things in life. A man spoke with me today about accepting a priesthood of Augustus. I told him not to touch it. You will lay out a lot of money for little in return. But the clerk will add my name to public contracts. Are you planning to be there every time a contract is signed so you can announce to the assembled, that's my name, here's writing it down? Even if you can attend these signing ceremonies now, what will you do when you die? But my name, will survive me. Carve it in stone and it will survive you just as well. Outside Necropolis, though, no one is going to remember you. But I can wear a crown of gold. If you have your heart set on wearing crowns, why not make one out of roses? You will look even more elegant in that. And I think that's why Epictetus's dialogue is so brilliant, because it's incredibly sassy. He's just told the quasi-king that he ought to be wearing a crown of roses instead of a crown of gold because it would look prettier on him, which is an excellent way of undermining control and power as imposed by authority. He also implies that to hold some sort of authority or to do the right thing is to be in accordance with one's own spirit as born into nature. It's not something to be nurtured. And I think that's the other thing that he points out really beautifully there as well. We never feel like sacrificing something when it's already within our nature. We don't need to sacrifice something that is good in order always to follow our destiny. Usually we have to sacrifice the terrible things about ourselves in order to be more in accordance with the best parts of ourselves. For example, and this is very, very basic and certainly not at the level of Epictetus, but if we were to sacrifice our desire for cake, as beautiful as cake is, then we would live in accordance with a healthier form of being. Just as sacrificing, if we're going to akin it to some form of, say, gluttony, sacrificing gluttony provides more beautiful experiences of health in everyday life. Just as sacrificing perhaps Senecan-style revenge plots will enable us to experience freedom and different futures and fates that are not so bound by hatred. And it's these sorts of readings where we sit and contemplate, even if it's just for a few minutes after reading, that will absolutely deconstruct the brain rot that has come from scrolling. So thank you, Epictetus, and thank you. I'll see you soon.